Today's project was going to be an 1870s tea gown, and as always, we will be beginning with a sketch. For this project, I used a Laughing Moons pattern as the base of this gown and made some minor alterations to the belt closure and the sleeves. But overall, this will be made out of a brown wool and a rayon silk blend in taupe shot with gold, along with some very dark brown gimp trim and some lace. Another alteration that I made to this pattern was lowering the neckline. I found that it was just a little bit too high, almost restricting, and I really didn't enjoy that. I also made an alteration to the arm's eye because it came out just a little bit too far. And then just other subtle changes to the pattern to make sure that it fit me nice and snug. Okay, the pattern is cut out and there is the fabric that I'm using. I need to lay out the silk and determine if I have enough of that for the drapery. I only have 2.5 yards. It's not a fabric I'd get more of because it was from a thrift shop. And then, but it is 56 inches wide, so we'll see. Okay, yes, I can just barely squeeze out the 3 panels that I'll need. The yardstick is the dividing line between that one and then the second one, because I'll have to basically flip it over and, you know, okay. But I also have like all of this amount left over, and it is quite a bit actually, so I might be able to make a pretty blouse out of that some other time. But yes, there is enough for the drapery fabric. I could theoretically have enough for the sleeves, but I'm doing the sleeves different because I don't like the ones that go along with Model A. These ones, not a fan. I much prefer the simple, these ones, without the little bit or these. So those are the sleeves I'm doing, not these, which is great, so I have enough of that. I was worried. So at this point what I'm doing is just running gathering stitches on the, I think it's the left side closure opening where that panel is going to meet the shoulder. All of that gets gathered down to fit, and I'll just connect at the top. Okay, so here are the cutout pieces in the wool, still attached to the pattern. Next step is going to be to flatline the lining to the fitted, I forgot what it's called, but like the fitted section of the tea gown, which is underneath the drape. That has to be lined with a lining, which is going to be a Kona cotton, just to give the very, very drapey wool just like a little bit more structure at the bodice. So that's next. Okay, so time for a little update on the tea gown. I have went ahead and faced all of the panels with the lining. It's just the Kona cotton that is done and basted in place. And then I still have all of our pieces cut out and attached to the pattern paper. On the drapery fabric, I have added the facing, we have gathered it, and the only piece I have left to do, we have seamed it up along all 3 panels with French seams. The only thing I have left to do is actually just go in and finish this edge. So once that's done, I believe this just gets turned right sides out. So, and I did the French seams by hand, if only because this fabric is so slippery. It would just wanted to wiggle around all over on the machine, so I ended up with like a really twisted French seam, which is not ideal and not very pretty. So that's why this was finished by hand, which the same way the raw edge here will also be finished by hand with filing stitches, so it will look as obvious, like there won't be as visible stitch lines. So that's where we're at with that. Today I should be able to finish that raw edge and then hopefully start piecing together the front panels. As for the instructions, yes, would be to flatline back pieces, which is done, and then stitch pieces 1, 2 together. That'll probably be French seams again. Okay, so there's been a slight change of plans. I was originally going to French seam the panels together. However, the panels also involve pleating, and that's, I think, a little bit too much thinking for my brain at the moment to try and factor in how am I going to do a French seam and the pleats at the same time. I don't know. I'm sure there's a very simple, obvious solution, but my brain is not capable of coming up with that solution right now, so we're not going to do French seams down the center seams. So, what I've done so far instead, oops, isn't that just great? Hold on, just a second, just a minute. Okay, yeah, alright, so what we've done so far is we have the back panels attached to the Watteau pleated back section, what will become the Watteau pleated back section. So now it's just a matter of, here's the back, here's the back, and here is also the back, and we need to take in a couple of pleats here. That'll be folded away from the seam. So that is next. And this began my 10 minutes of trying to work out exactly how box pleats even work. I had no experience with box pleats at the time, so I really didn't understand how that fabric would fold down to the length it needed to be, as well as lining up those 2 side seams. This took a lot longer than I am willing to admit. And of course, once I worked out how the box pleats worked, I then had to figure out exactly how they were supposed to get tacked down to the skirts without being seen. I also did not understand how that worked out, but fortunately I did figure out the back seam and how that worked. Oh, clever, clever, clever. And with that successfully resolved and worked out, I went ahead and tacked the pleats in place. So basically I'm just closing up the pleat, and then I am seaming the side front panel to the front panel all the way down. And thus began the puzzle of trying to figure out how to turn out the Watteau pleats this time. This was a lot of figuring things out for me and trying to understand how it worked. Fortunately, the Watteau pleats, where I got stuck for a little while, I was able to figure it out fairly quickly, quicker than the box pleats anyway. And also, I would not recommend making this up out of such a thick wool either. 0 out of 10, would not recommend. This was not a fun time. To keep our Watteau pleats in place, what I decided to do was just do a slip stitch, or as best I could, a slip stitch. I just kind of stitched in between the layers of fabrics and tried to keep the stitches hidden as best I could. This encourages the fabric to maintain the pleats more than just running a row of top stitching along the top, which I did as well. I just found it didn't want to behave. The pleats attached, and I actually did just go ahead and tack them down at the top because I really wanted the definition of the pleats to be there, and then they are left hanging further down. All the back panels are attached. The drapery is made. I just need to turn the facing right side out. And the inside is an absolute mess. So I think what I'll do, because I'm not really keen on going in and finishing all of these long seams, we're going to use some pinking shears that I finally have some now. But to give you an idea of just how messy and gross it is on the inside, it is terrible. And originally I intended to do French seams here, but my brain couldn't work out how to do it, so I didn't do it. So I'm going to go ahead and pink the seams with some pinking shears, and then probably from there we'll go in and add a waist stay. And the waist stay is, I don't understand the physics behind this, but somehow the waist stay actually manages to keep the back of the gown, especially with the weight of the Watteau pleats, it somehow manages to keep the back of the gown snug against the back of the waist. Okay, and a status update on the tea gown. So what I have so far is I've managed to attach the back facing, or the back neckline facing, as well as waisting. And I also went ahead and finished all of the inside seams. I just pinked them and then overcast them, and then I just pinked the actual longer ones because no, I am not filling all that down. The next thing to do is to cut out bias strips, level the hem, and then sew them on the right sides and then turn them out. But I think what I want to do first is that there is going to be an inside, another panel right here or so. And I kind of want to attach that first because I'm concerned that if I level this hem and then attach those bias strips and then attach that and it's not the same length, then I'm going to have to undo all that other work, and I'm not sure how that's going to work out. So we might deviate from the instructions to do that step. And then sometime I need to find time to actually go in and steam these pleats because I'd like them to hang a little bit neater, and this one does not want to. This one just wants to come completely apart. So those are the next steps. Okay, so I have constructed a belt for the tea gown, and the way this works is that it will be sewn in onto the side seam of the tea gown, like right there, on this side and on this side, and then here we'll have 3 little clasps where each dot is, so it can open there and overlap there, and then it'll just kind of sit in front of the tea gown right there at like the waist. I'm probably going to decorate this with some soutache and some of the same trim that I'll be running along the edges of the tea gown. So that's the belt. Next is just to install those closures and then take the front facings of the tea gown and attach that to the draped portion of the tea gown all along the edge. So the belt to the waist, and then so the front panel to the back panel. And then we should have a garment to try on. That's a lot of work just to get far enough along to try on, but that's where we are. Then hemming and trimming. Okay, so as seems to be the the running theme for this project, I don't seem to know how to turn on a camera. So I have almost finished doing up the sleeves. I'm just going to go ahead and baste the 3 different layers in place. I've got the outer sleeve made, the inner sleeve is seamed up. I went ahead and finished it with French seams on the inside so I wouldn't have to worry about raw edges. And then I did the same thing for the outer sleeve. It's finished with French seams, and I went ahead and trimmed the bottom of it with this absolutely gorgeous carpet trim that I love so much. And then I did the same kind of little cap sleeves that I did on my Boba Fett shirt. So I will be basting these 3 layers together. Next thing to do on the robe itself is to go ahead and attach the front to the back. So yes, that is next. Given that there's probably about 16 layers of fabric just there alone, we're going to set the sleeves in by hand because I am not wrestling this under a antique sewing machine. That's not happening. Best dad ever. Let's just, there we go. And sulfate free. So after doing all that work and getting everything done, almost, I tried it on and I realized my fatal error. It was too small. So I cut out a new underlayer in muslin. Okay, hopefully this is going to be a somewhat easy to follow. What, you want out now? Where do you want to be? Where do you want to be? Okay, so Mr. Pooch over here, let me just, this senior puppy is basically glued to my side. So if I leave the room, he is following me out of the room. If I go into another room, he's following me into that room too. And there's not a lot of space in this room. But anyway, on to Mr. Puppy. Okay. So I think a status update is overdue on the Kenobi tea gown because it's been maybe about 3 months since I worked on this, because what happened was I made it and it was too small. And it was too small because I'm stupid and I did like 4 layers of wool on this stupid thing. So when I put it on, the seams in the back were pulling so badly that I actually had to go in and reinforce those seams. So very much a patch job, but also a very necessary patch job. There's also another one on this side which I actually reinforced from the inside, so you can't really see the stitches on the outside. But it was that small, so I had to go in and reinforce those seams. And I didn't really figure out why until I thought for a minute that, Ashley, you have like 8 layers of wool. Of course it's gonna fit tighter than the mock-up because you did a wool facing or a wool like closure. This bit right here, which is now made up out of muslin, but originally it was made up out of wool, and that was part of the reason that it was fitting so tightly, is because the wool doesn't stretch as much as the muslin will. And then also because it's a lot thicker, so the side seams were a lot thicker. Paired that with the belt and the drapery and all the other layers that went into this tea gown, that's probably why it didn't fit. And also the corset I have is not ideal. I've made a better one since then. Maybe I'll post a video about that. Maybe I already have. I really don't know when it's going up versus when this is going up. But that is what happened. So I had to like shove it in a box and not look at it for 3 months because I was so done with it. And then I was struck by a sudden urge of motivation. I think it's just a project that I had undone that I decided, let me just go ahead and finish up some projects. That's what I've been doing these past couple weeks. And so I ripped out the front panels, I ripped off the facings, I took off the original wool bits that I had made up, and it's currently buried in a bin, and I'm not going to dig for it. And then I went and cut out of just some white muslin, very lightweight white muslin, the fitted closure, and because I didn't care, I seamed it backwards, obviously, but also I don't care because it's covered by the drapery anyway. So I seamed that up, and then I took the drapery, I pressed it all so it will lay nice and straight. I disattached the facing that I did wrong to begin with. I reattached it with just some running stitches, and now it is pinned to the fitted closure. So this all needs to be seamed together, the fitted closure and the drapery. And then from there, I could seam it back to the body of the tea gown, put the facings back in place, reset the sleeves, and then set the collar. So just a few more steps before this is complete and ready to go. And I think it will be very pretty. It is still very, very Kenobi-esque to me because of the color scheme. And then I could trim it with a dark brown trim, and then that will be that. But this is where it stands now with the fitted lining or fitted closure attached to the drapery. And I just need to seam it all together. But yeah, I'm fully motivated on, not fully motivated, I'm somewhat motivated on working on it, because I don't really want to start another 1870s project before I finish my current 1870s project. So that's where that is. So my dearest puppy has this habit of, if you move 2 inches over, he's gonna move 2 inches over too. Very, very attached. But only if I'm home alone. Because if Dad's home, you're glued to his side. See how it is? Fair weather friend. Anyway, moving on to day 5 million of the tea gown. What I need to do now is seam up the shoulder seams. I've got them pinned into place. I have the drapery, and then I have the facing, and then I have the back panel, and then those just get seamed up, and then the side seams as well. I also, while all the panels were separate, kind of took some time to just sort of level the hem so that it was kind of even on each individual panel. Hopefully that will make hemming this beast a little bit easier because so yeah, that's next. I have the sleeves made up already from before I had to rip everything apart. Those will get attached next, and then I think I have to recut the collar facing because I think it's too small. And I hope like that opening is big enough for my neck. We'll see. We'll see. I might have to rethink that. Anyway, let's go ahead and seam it up so we can at least try it on and see if it fits any better.
So I shake out that piece.
Okay, so this is mostly constructed on the tea gown, and I think I've got the belt. I had to let it out a little bit on the side seam, which is why this little dip is happening, but I think that's alright. This side it isn't as bad. The collar is very, very itchy, so I'm gonna have to do something here. And originally, I think on the sketch I had this was all going to be lace work. I might move forward with that, if only because this is very annoying. It's very itchy and I don't like it. For the arm size, there is a little bit of pulling there, so I don't know if you can see, but I went ahead and drew in some lines where I'm going to trim that back a bit. And I think that'll be okay, because on the arm's eyes I did actually gather them. So making the arm's eyes bigger, I could just loosen up the gathering stitches and it should still fit just fine. These sleeves are still, of course, assembled, so they'll just kind of go back on in place. I think, depending on whether or not I decide to add the lace here, it dictates on whether or not I'm going to remove these cuffs or not, because the cuffs aren't really my style. I don't love them. Yeah, I'm not in love with the cuffs, but don't know. We'll see. But yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and make those slight adjustments and then try and decide whether or not I want to overlay that with, oh my god, it's so itchy. I hate it so much. And then I think, I was looking at it and I think I still do want to do a collar. Yeah, I think it needs a collar. Okay, so here is our tea gown so far. We have hems, the muslin, and the back of the tea gown. So now it is time to hem the silk version and then the front lapel pieces as well. I'm going to hem them using the same technique, where we're just going to turn that under and then stitch a line of, well, that's going to be braid, but we're going to stitch a line of lace to the silk. So it's just a matter of picking out what lace we want to use. This is the lace that I use along the cuffs, and I don't love it. I kind of want to replace it with the pleated trim instead, but I do have more of it that I could do for the hem, so I'm not sure if I want to do it that way. So this is our bin of pretty laces, and this is what we're going to be hemming. So, question is, what do I want to hem it with? What do I think will be pretty? Can't really see the hem, can you? How about there? Okay, better. So that's gonna look like that, basically. We have this. It's pretty basic. Don't love it. So I need something with a scalloped edge. I don't actually have a lot of lace. It's not my favorite thing in the world. I have a lot of knitted lace, but that won't really go. This is gorgeous, but also not really the colors we're looking for. I could bleach it, but this is special. I'm saving it. Here, like I said, is more of that same kind that I used for, and honestly I think it might actually be the best choice. So if that's there, I could stitch on top, or I could slip stitch it and have it look like that instead. Not sure. there's actually this last thing that I want to do on this tea gown before I can completely call it finished, and that is just trim off this extra bit here at the bottom because it is a little bit unsightly and you can kind of see it once that fabric actually lays out flat. So we're just going to go ahead and get rid of all of this extra here at the bottom so that way the lace can just kind of cover everything and just even that out. Not perfectly even because it's me, but close enough. See, like there's this huge amount right here. And I'm trimming this with peeking shears because this fabric does fray and I want to alleviate the fraying as much as possible. So now this can just lay just like that over that, and we have a finished tea gown, or at least as finished as I'm gonna make it because I'm kind of over this project. It's been going on for too long. So this gets hung up and put in the closet where it belongs. Final thoughts. I think although the end result of this pattern does have some fit issues, this isn't a result of the pattern. This is in fact a very good pattern. However, it's also quite the advanced pattern, and I was using it as a beginner, which is part of the reason it took me almost a year and a half to put this tea gown together. Reviewing it now, I do understand where my missteps were. The issues I ran into with this is that the Rayon silk blend, although absolutely beautiful, would not stay pressed. It kind of wants to live in a wrinkled state, which is fine, but not for the garment that I was putting together. And then the wool is simply just too warm for this climate and too thick for the amount of layers that go into this project. In the winter, I think it would be lovely, but in early May in Texas, along the Texas coast, not so much. But in the end, I do like it. Fit issues aside, it is a really, really pretty thing to look at. And if you are still here, thank you for watching and coming along with me. We will probably be doing some more 1870s shenanigans on this channel here soon. I am currently working on a walking suit from the period. Hopefully one that won't be nearly as hot or as heavy since we're making it out of cotton. But if you want to see that or other work by me, feel free to subscribe. If you liked this video, please give it a thumbs up, and I'll see you in the next one.